Okay, people. So, man, I was really lucky enough to be center screener for Finch. So I thought I would give it a look. Right? It's the new Tom Hanks film. I mean, that's all I really knew. But I was intrigued because I saw the poster and you have Hanks in a spacesuit, right? So I'm like, okay. All right, old Tommy is getting into a little bit of space business. So, what is this film about, right? That was the big question, people. That was the big question. All right, so you know, it's directed by Miguel Sapochnik, right? Who, what I mean? He's directed some Game of Thrones, right? And he won an award for that. So, you kind of feel most of the people directing Game of Thrones were good, right? They handled their business. So he's been behind one film, you know, one film, right? And that was in 2010. So you're like, huh, what's he been doing? That's a long ass time ago. But he's got some great TV credits under his house, under his hat, even under his house. Huh. He's directed episodes of House, episodes of Fringe, right? Both very good. Falling Skies, which I heard was decent, but I never watched it. The same with Under the Dome, you know what I mean? And a lot of other, big stuff that, like True Detective, Master of Sex, you know what I mean? Like all names. He did Iron Fist, Altered Carbon, both I enjoyed, right? And he's going to be working on the new Game of Thrones. His one film was, as I said, look, it was back in 2010. It was Repo Man, right? And I enjoyed that, right? It wasn't a bad film. Wasn't a bad film, you know? Jude Law, Forrest Whitaker. Yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it, people. I enjoyed it. But yes, so they say it's from a spec script, which I feel is kind of like the Blacklist shit, right? You know what I mean? It's an idea and then you flesh it out a little bit. But it was from Craig Luck and Ivor Powell. Now, Luck, Powell, and Spatnik, they also all helped produce the film, along with Daniel Mays, Kevin Mishner, Jack Rapak, and Robert Zemeckis. Cinematography was Joe Williams. It's edited by Tim Porter. Music is Gustavo Santaolalla, right? And when we say cast, it's not a lot of people up in this film, right? So you have Tom Hanks, who plays Finch, we then also have Goodyear, who's played by Seamus, and other than a few Seamus, doesn't have to do a whole lot but look cute as a dog, chase balls, you know what I mean? Do that dog life, right? We have got then Jeff, who is voiced by Caleb Landry Jones, right? And that's it. The other people, we see some people, but they're not really, they don't have talking parts. Like Emily Jones is the voice of the warning system for Finch and his truck and whatnot, right? So that's the whole thing. It was one of these films that was meant to come out, but got delayed. Now it was originally called Bios, which I have to say, I think Finch is a better title. Neither are amazing, but I think Finch is a better title than Bios. Miles is just like, huh? You know what I mean? Um, but anyway, people, so what is this about, right? That's what you're asking. Well, 10 years have passed since a solar flare destroyed the ozone layer, increasing temperatures to 150 degrees, that's Fahrenheit, 70 degrees Celsius, and turning the planet Earth into a largely uninhabitable wasteland scorched by ultraviolet radiation and subject to extreme weather events. Right, one of the few survivors, robotics engineer Finch Weinberg, who lives alone with his dog Goodyear and helper robot Dewey in an underground laboratory in St. Louis. Right? Um, yeah, it was basically where Finch used to work. Finch only ventures outside to search for supplies with a heat and ultraviolet resistant suit. Yeah, I mean, it's not the you know, best of existence, but he decides to build a robot, right, to protect things. Yeah. So it's a film about life, love, and friendship and what it means to be human. Oh, it's kind of cute. It's kind of cute, right? Now, right, because I just was it last year? I think we had News of the World, right? That was another Tom Hanks film, which at the time I thought was about the newspaper, right? I thought, making a film about the newspaper, like why? But it wasn't that. And I did enjoy that one, right? So it's like, oh, another Hanks film. How's this going to be? And Hanks, you know, he's notoriously always trying to play the good guy and everything like that. You know, like his films are endearing. They're for that family market, I would say. And yeah, sometimes, right? He had the film about that dude that reads kids stuff and smiles a lot, which again, not a bad film. It was a nice film, right? But sometimes you want that bite. They don't always have that bite to them. But I was like, yo, let me see what this is about. And I have to say, uh, at first, I wasn't quite sure. Right now, not to say it was bad because it opened up with him looking for supplies, right? And the way he was utilizing Dewey, I was just like, yo, that makes sense, right? Because Dewey, he was like, oh, bottle. Dewey picked it up. I'm thinking, boom, yeah, helps with radiation, right? All of those things is you know, a sensible precaution. So they were doing things in this post-apocalyptic world that you think, all right, yeah, I get that. And you don't always see in these films, right? A lot of times you have these worlds and they do things, and you're like, would you really be doing that in that situation? It seems a bit like, so it made sense, right? And then we see him, you know, the precautions he takes and all those sort of things, and he's talking to Goodyear and all of that kind of stuff. But I noticed something, right? I think it's not something that's like necessarily a secret, but I think like the reveal comes later in the film. But I picked up on a few little bits and bobs, and I realized what the film was. And I thought that made it something a bit more to me, right? Once I realized why he's building this robot and what the fuck, I was like, okay, all right, yeah, because there is a point when you're thinking, well, because you know, in the blurb, right, is 10 years, you don't get that information in the film. I didn't really feel. Maybe I missed something. Maybe there's a visual cue. I don't know. But I didn't really get the duration of time he's been in this bunker, you know, living since the calamity. Yeah, so he's building a robot, and you see all these books and this stuff, and you're thinking, why? And why build a robot now? Right? So that you're a little curious about that kind of stuff. But yeah, once you realize, like, okay, this makes sense. Right. And so it's this kind of you know, this new life, this nature v nurture, right? Essentially. Um, and he's teaching the robot stuff, and we get a montage of all of that kind of things, and it's fine, right? But then, yeah, they have to move. They have to move from the bunker. You're not quite sure why, right? Now, because it says how many days will I be here, and it gives a day, right? But you kind of feel, all right, but don't you have supplies? Right? It was a bit like, why is that so detrimental? Like, what's the issue? But we don't really get that explained, but they do go out. And then it's, how are they going to do this? Right? How are they going to survive? How are they going to make this interesting? And it was interesting. I'll say it was a nice film, and we see this learning curve and all of this. Now, the one thing is, right, there are these moments, and like calamity happens, and he's like shouting at Jeff. Jeff's the robot. But you do kind of think, you're a smart motherfucker, right? You built a robot, you've probably built Dewey, you've done all of this stuff. You're an engineer. So you should know, right? If you haven't programmed a robot to do these things, and it takes time to build in that recognition of, oh, let's do this, and boom, 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 then why are you shouting at a robot, right? And I get the fact, like frustration and irritation, boom, 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 but then you kind of would assume to be like, what am I doing? Shouting at a fucking robot? This is insane. This is like something like that. You feel me? But there isn't. But I will say that is nitpicking, right? It's nitpicking, people. Um, but yeah, it was kind of interesting the way it all kind of unfolded. There was a moment though with the whole radiation and all of this, which then later on, and it's just like, but isn't what? Huh? Right? Yeah, it was a bit confusing. And then when they introduce this stuff, bum bum bum, you'd be like, that seems a bit quick. And then that first bit with the hand, how do you get from that to that so fast? Right? If one day it's that, then surely you're not gonna suddenly boom, you get that, right? But again, I kind of figure it's not essentially that, right? Those little bits and bobs that come up that you think, doesn't necessarily fit, right? It's not really that. The film is essentially about this relationship between Finch, Goodyear, and Jeff, right? It's about that. And, is a little cheesy, is a little cliched in places, you know? Why won't he like me? It's all about trust, right? And then the moment when the trust is found, and you're like, yeah, hopefully, obviously, yeah, okay. But it is handled well, you know? I think it looks great, right? Very nice cinematography. You do get the feel of these people in this vast space, traveling around in this deserted, you know, earth. Although we do realize, there are people, right? It's just he doesn't like people, right? He's avoiding them. So there is this interesting component to it, and I like that little addition, because it would be like, wait, huh? Wait, he's the only, like, huh? So adding these little bits and bobs in, it works. It's nice, you know. And yeah, I didn't feel it was like grandstanding or because he had moments in like I Am Legend where he does the Shrek monologue and it's a bit much. It's a bit much because it's too, oh, look at me. And you didn't really get that with this. It was more focused on the story and this, relationship and all of that, which is, yeah, it works for you, right? Definitely work for you. I see a lot of people, you know, saying Johnny Five and short, which is Short Circuit, right? But you know, for me, it kind of felt like The Martian, but on more of a adventure. Because The Martian was very focused to essentially the habitat. Now he does go on the rover journey, right? But other than that, it's all very in a couple of places. Boom, boom, boom. Which I loved. I loved The Martian. The Martian is great, but Finch kind of channels that, but then takes it more. I say global. They're just in the states, driving around. You know what I mean? Van life. But yeah, it opens it up a bit more. It opens it up a bit more and adds in a few different elements. You know. So yeah, I would say if you were a fan of The Martian, then I think you'll enjoy this. They're different films, right? And I would say this is definitely more family orientated, but it still works, right? It still works. So although Cruz, again, he plays safe with the content does work. You know, if you want your kids to, you know, mess around in that post-apocalyptic sandbox, then I feel this is something you can give them, right? This is something you can give them and go, listen, unless you follow little Greta Thunberg, this might happen. This might be your future. But yeah, no, Finch, hey, it's playing on Apple TV Plus, right? So obviously you need an Apple TV Plus account so you can watch it, you can enjoy it, divulge it, you know. But hey, I think if you sign up, you get a week's trial, something like that, 2 weeks trial maybe. So yeah, I mean, boom, open it up, check it out, dip your feet in, and I think, yeah, I think this is something that will, make people go, all right, good content, good content. And again, yeah, Hanks, you know, second year in a row, he produces a very heartfelt, decent film. News of the World was Netflix. This is Apple. He's, spreading his love around. But yes, I think Mr. Rogers, was it Mr. Rogers? Isn't it One Day in a Neighborhood, something like that, right? I think that was Netflix as well. Yeah, I think it was. Maybe it wasn't. I forget. Anyway, I digest. No, I don't know why I always say I digest. I digest is something completely different. I digress, motherfucker. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, Finch, definitely definitely worth a watch, definitely worth a watch. Look, if you want something more adult, it's not going to do that, but it ticks boxes. They do, throw in some stuff to stir the pot a little bit as well, right? One thing, just one aside. Now, it doesn't really affect the film, but I'm always curious because with a film like this, and you see people on that journey, right? And they put on the radio or their tape, CDs, whatever, whatever, and they listen to music. And you always see people playing, like this one went to old tracks like American Pie and stuff like that, stuff that's known, popular stuff. you know, sometimes it'll be new stuff, depending, I guess, which artist you've got an endorsement with or label and all of that business. But one thing that I always wonder, right? Because I kind of feel, especially 10 years in, you're now on deep cuts, right? You're doing those album tracks, you're doing those albums that, you know, people probably didn't maybe hear about, like that Ghostface album that didn't really make any noise, but is killer, you know? And then you have your playlists of your favorite shit. So if it's a bad day or something, you can throw that on and bring yourself back up. But yeah, I always feel they never show that. Never show that. And I wonder. But as I said, look, it's a little side, don't really matter, doesn't affect the film. People. Finch, post-apocalyptic, Tom Hanks, you know, Tom Hanks' heartfelt niceness. So yeah, if you want to lift yourself up, you know, something to remind you what humanity is, then this could be the thing for you.